Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I hope you're having a great day. My name is Eric, and in today's episode, I'm going to show you how to properly render pork fat and turn it into snow white, odorless lard, which is going to be perfect for your recipes. And as a bonus, at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how we take our pork solids and turn those into a crispy, crunchy, keto-friendly snack that we call cracklins. Let's get started. All right, so I'm working on a project that requires a bit of lard, and unfortunately, lard isn't available where I live, but I can get pork fat, and I found this at the local grocery store. It's called manteca de cerdo. Look how much it cost. 7 cents for roughly 3 pounds, which is going to be absolutely perfect for what we need. Now, there's several different types of fat on the pig. You've got intermuscular fat, you've got back fat, belly fat, which is what we use to make bacon. There's something called caul fat, which is actually very cool. And there's leaf fat, which is what we're looking at right here. This leaf fat is the type of fat that's found around the kidneys on the pig. And notice right here, this particular bag happens to have some belly fat. There's the skin. We're going to save this for when we make sausages, because what I want to do is I want to render only the leaf fat. That's going to make the cleanest lard. It's going to be odorless, it's going to be snow white, and it's going to be perfect for your pie crusts, for your tamales, for whatever you want to use it for. And let me show you how we're going to process this to begin rendering. I'm going to show you a couple ways, and regardless of which way you choose to do it, you want to make sure that you cut your leaf fat into very small pieces. The smaller, the better. And here's the reason why. When you cut your pieces into small cubes, you give them more surface area so that when you begin to render the fat, it melts away a little bit quicker than it would if the pieces were much larger. And that's a good thing, because we don't want to cook this too long. Otherwise, it'll start to turn yellow and take on a porky flavor. So this little pile is good to go, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch squares. We could start rendering that and it'll be totally okay. But let me show you a second way to do it. Now, this is the way I actually like to render the leaf fat. And I find that it is not only quicker, but it's also more efficient and produces a cleaner lard more consistently. So all I'm going to do is cut our fat into relatively large pieces. Nothing too complicated here, just 1.5 to 2 inch strips. Basically, I want the strips to fit inside of my meat grinder. And we're going to be grinding this on the smallest plate that we have. So once we got all that cut up, we're going to go ahead and place it into the grinder. We are going to be using the smallest die. So if you have a KitchenAid grinder or a grinder like this is a number 12 from the Sausage Maker. Incredibly affordable, handy little grinder. I'll put a link in the description box if you want information. And funny enough, it's not that much more than a KitchenAid grinder. So notice we're using a 3mm. That's the smallest plate that we have. And you don't have to worry about your fat being partially frozen or anything like that, because the idea here is to smear it, right? We want to render that fat. And so if it warms up during the grinding process, that's fine. And this is our finished product. That was about 15 pounds of leaf fat. And what's great about grinding it is that your grinder is going to cut that leaf fat into very small particles, smaller than you'd be able to do by hand. And so this increases the surface area of each one of those particles. It renders very quickly, very efficiently, and it's going to give you a nice, clean, odorless white lard, which is going to be perfect for your recipes. And so the idea here is not to cook it too long or too hot. And so let me show you how we're going to do this. We're going to take that bowl and place it on top of a pot with boiling water in it, kind of like a bain-marie. And we're going to be using the steam from that bain-marie to render our fat. This is absolutely brilliant because the temperature is not going to get too hot. And all we got to do every once in a while is give it a little stir, and that fat will then begin to pull away from those tiny little particles. Now, I have made this in a slow cooker on low, for 5 or 6 hours, let it cook. And you could do it, although you got to watch it a little bit closer because it does tend to cook a little bit hotter than a bain-marie. But notice as we continue to stir, that fat continues to render. And right towards the end, you're going to be left with a clear separation of your solids and your liquid fat. You'll know this is done when the solid particles take on more of a brown color and they're no longer pink. And as soon as you get to that stage, you can pull it off the heat and strain it through a sieve that's been lined with cheesecloth. All right, all of our fat has been strained out. And this is the last little step, totally optional. I'm going to go ahead and take the solid particles
and put them back into a bowl. So we've got our lard and our solids. And like I said earlier, this is optional, but let me show you what we're going to do with the solids that remain. We're going to take that and place it back onto the stove in a pot large enough to handle all this. I am going to add oil because most of the fat was already rendered. And you do want enough oil in your pot to where you're basically deep frying all of these solid particles. I think I ended up adding maybe 2.5 cups of oil. This will stick to the pot, so you definitely want to make sure you're stirring often. And the temperature of our oil is roughly 350 to 375 Fahrenheit. And after just a little while of cooking, you're going to notice that those solid particles are going to fry up, turn a beautiful golden brown, and turn into crispy cracklins. Now, technically, you can do this whole process while you're rendering the lard, but it will affect the color and the flavor of your lard. So I like to do the rendering as the first step and then frying up the cracklins as the second. And there it is. I mean, this is a great product. You could put a little bit of salt right on top. It is on a paper towel to let some of that extra oil get absorbed out. And once it's cooled, place it in a Ziploc bag in the refrigerator and you're good to go.
All right, everyone, there you have it. That's how we take our pork fat and we render it into snow white, odorless, very neutral lard. And at this point, this lard can be stored in an airtight container in the dark at room temperature for, 6 to 8 months. Or you could keep it in the refrigerator for at least a year, maybe a little bit longer. You could do this entire process by hand. You technically don't need a grinder, but if you have a grinder, you will get better results with your lard and you will get better, more consistent cracklins. I mean, look at that. Absolutely amazing cracklins, very crispy, very small. If you want the cracklin size to be a little bit larger, just use a slightly larger plate on your grinder and grind everything through, following the same steps, just ensuring that you don't cook this at too hot of a temperature. Let's go ahead and give some of these cracklins a try. Delicious, crispy, porky, great as a topping. I hope you get a chance to try it. If you got any questions about how to render lard, leave them in the comment section below. And if you like this video and you want to see more like it, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell. I appreciate you being here. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh. So good. So good.